Hello, everyone. Hello again, and welcome to the Learn From Us Investor Academy podcast. Wherever you're watching, on iTunes, listening on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, Tim does a great job of premiering these on Facebook. Hello and welcome. If it's your first episode, that'd be cool.
Yeah, where have you been?
If you are watching every episode, welcome back. I'm Seth. This is Paul. I had a dinner meeting with Paul last night with some friends. We're looking to expand our media, and anyway, I need to take more time in my life, Paul, to and I probably speak for Tim in this manner, is that I have to thank you for the guidance that you give me in my life.
Oh, you're welcome.
I joke around. I have to check in with Paul from enormous things like career changes down to like, does this avocado feel right enough to buy from Kroger? And so I end up turning to Paul. So I have conversations with people in my life, and I bring up Paul's name a ton. Well, Paul said this, Paul said that. And Paul's very quick to add, like, there's multiple ways to skin a cat. But
my Hank impression.
Yeah. So Hank's my son. But anyway, I mean, you really have done is, my life has completely changed. And I think what I stress to people is that Paul has given me the opportunity to think much bigger. We had a conversation with some friends last night over dinner, and they mentioned the same thing that I always thought. If I could ever just retire one day, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Yeah, I was actually surprised that was the first thing I asked about, what's your fear? What keeps you up at night? And that was the comment.
And Paul has not only shifted my mindset from, boy, I'd love to pay off my house and maybe retire, to million dollar properties and millions of dollars of retirement can absolutely happen. That would be step Z. We just need to start with A, have the guts to continue through B and C. And when we have problems, turn to someone we might know, like Paul, to give us guidance. So it's funny is I think we were sitting back contemplating where this podcast is going to go in the future. Mm-hmm. And I think the rest of the world kind of stresses that, Paul, you have the amazing opportunity to guide people in many forms, not just real estate. Sort of. When did you get these sort of Yoda-like qualities to look at a situation
Yoda
from outside and guide people?
Well, Seth, you do wedding photography.
Yeah.
You do podcasts. If somebody called you for a wedding, you're going to be able to see things, do things, ask things, say things about the wedding. Why?
Well, I have a lot of experience in weddings. I've photographed 180 of them. And yeah, but there's more to that, because I'll ask you stuff that has nothing to do with real estate. It's more personal.
Because business is... So first off, any sort of... The one thing I liked about... There are many things I liked about yesterday's meeting, but the thing I liked so much was they didn't come in with this, our company's different. They didn't come in with that mentality. Yeah. They came in with the, hey, we need somebody who understands business, because we don't think we understand business enough, or we can't do something. Which, by the way, I think they understood business better than they thought. But when you do things for so long, like these life things, I've been since I've known you back in high school, I've always thought to myself, okay, why is this person different? Why does this person do this? Why does this happen? Same with business. Over the years, when you get pitched so many different ideas, and you see how business runs, because I have my own business, and I look at, well, what do I care about my business? Cash flow, revenue growth, all these things that matter. It just applies to everybody else. There's no business that's different than any other. And if anybody says that, you should run away from them. There's no business. There's still revenue, marketing, expenses, all those things. So once you understand those concepts, you can sit there and say, these are the things I understand about life in general. My ideas in life have changed a lot, though, in the last few years. I used to believe you should want to be huge and be this and be that, and that has really shifted dramatically in the last 5 to 7 years.
Huge wealth-wise or huge popularity-wise?
So I used to think everybody should want to try to be very wealthy. And now I look at it and say, no, you should just pick what you want to do. When I asked the one female last night, I said, well, what do you want? I don't know what I want. Oh, okay. I loved hearing that, because I'm like, okay, so we need to start from, okay, what are you trying to accomplish here? And then what do we need to do in order to accomplish that? Which is step C, D, E, whatever the letter is. But over time, when you start realizing that everything in life is just about getting things done, that's when you start sitting there and saying, okay, I just need to break everything down into tasks. Like, you and I talk about moving. You say, okay, let's figure out what you need to do to get this house. Okay, once you figure that out, what's your next step? I need to sell my house now.
Yeah.
Right? And everything's about that. And it's not like it's Yoda-like thoughts. It's just, you just do enough stuff and you're going to get to know it. And when I'm 50, I'll know a lot more than today. And when I'm 60, I'll know a lot more than I'm 50. And these things will change over time and hopefully for the better, just like yours will. And someday, 5 years from now, hopefully you're laughing about buying a 5-unit or a 4-unit property going, I was so worried about doing it before. You know what I mean? Potentially. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but as long as you do it, you'll get so much better. The first time I bought a property, I was literally scared shitless. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen here now? You're with us in Mexico, and we made a cash offer on a 8-figure property because we knew we could raise the money easily, and we knew what the deal was worth, and we had no problem with it. Done. I mean, we made the offer, and by the time we landed, we had nope, it's not going to happen. Okay, that's fine, but that's just with experience. So it's not like, just like you are with photography. And can I have put this podcast together? No chance.
Yeah, you say that all the time, but
I mean, I shouldn't say that. I could have put the podcast together, but you are much more into this world where you knew exactly. It would have taken me 10 times longer than you to put this podcast together. You knew, Paul, this camera does this microphone does this lighting, this is what we need. Yeah. I wouldn't have had that light right there. I would probably only had those lights. So that's the whole thing. And I know that's kind of not boring to talk about, but
I think a lot of people, when we first concocted this, I thought, man, this guy reminds me a lot of Scary V. He highly motivated, get shit done guy. Gary V wants to own the Jets. You want to own an NBA team one day.
Does he want to own the Jets?
Talks about it all the time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's like his huge goal. The brashness, I think, also helps. You're kind of.
He's more brash than me, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's super in your face. But yeah, but I was surprised that you didn't even know who he was.
No, I knew who Gary Vee was.
When we first started, I mean, you weren't a huge follower, were you?
No, I was. I'm still not a huge. I knew who he was, though, and the things I had seen of his, I liked, because I liked his bluntness and his.
Yeah.
Like, I just saw something today where he said, "School failed me." Now, I won't say school failed him, but he's right. School isn't built for entrepreneurs. School is built for workers. Fine with now 7 years ago, Paul would have said that's terrible. Gary Vee says that's terrible. I think it's fine if you want to be a worker, or if you think that's the right route for you. Because not everybody, when I go to a high school class and said, who here wants to own their business? 85-90% of the room raised their hand. How many actually end up owning their own business?
It's tough.
Yeah, it is really tough. It's very tough. And we went to a high school in which that was probably more likely to happen. But there's so much more to it than just what they teach in school in terms of study this, you'll get this grade. Start a business, you'll be successful. No, there's so much more to it than that. And that's what I like about Gary Vee so much. He doesn't teach that. He doesn't preach the BS of like, oh, as long as you can dream it, you can do it. No, that's not true. I mean, if you can dream it, that's great, but you got to be able to do things.
So speaking of, if this is the first time you've seen this podcast, what exactly do we do here? So I'm the liaison between the viewer and Paul, I think. We concocted this idea to do this podcast because we needed to pick Paul's brain about the ideas of building long-term wealth for real estate and the steps that are going to occur and how you're most likely going to need a personal trainer, which would be going to learnfromus.com, contacting Paul and his team, and hiring them to assist you. I think a lot of people, like you described last night, a lot of people want to get into real estate. It's a great buzzword.
Of course.
And most people are scared shitless about actually taking the initial steps. So I bring up the idea of like what kind of a great life coach you are, because I think having you in my life has coached me a lot more than just buying a property, mowing the lawn, and maintaining it. It's just I think building the mindset of there can be greater things in this world than paying off your house, maybe retiring, things of that nature. I now think, again, I'm always involved in the photography, videography community. And I think a successful career in the photography world is like, they say it's 6 figures. Oh, dear God, if I could only make 6 figures, my life would be great. And then once you start making that, you might have the opportunity to look for more and think about more things. And so I think we describe the Learn From Us process, everything that we do with the podcast, the deals of the weeks, the promo videos, learning from Paul is I think all this probably has to start as a side hustle from a normal person's job, right?
Which I love.
We talk to project managers, we talk to doctors, we talk to lawyers, people who are looking for a little bit more, maybe not so much bored with their life, but the 9 to 5 can get repetitive, and how can we do more, right? How can we bust away from the, well, maybe I'd like to retire, to maybe I'd like to really build long-term wealth. And I never thought it was possible for me ever.
So that's the thing that I want to reiterate so much with you. It's just changing your framework of how you view things.
Yeah.
I didn't just make you into something. It's about, let me ask Seth a question and see how he reacts to that question, right? Those are the things that we sit there and look at and go, I'm not here to tell you go do this, this, and this. It's also a matter of getting your thought process to change on, okay, what is possible? What can I do? What do I want to do? And those are very important things to understand in anybody's life. I don't care. Pardon me. I don't care who you are. Bill Gates.
Paul's burping up Chipotle, by the way.
I didn't even finish it. Crust.
Keep going.
Whoever it is, you have to decide what you want in your life. I mean, look at Bill Gates. He made a career change 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and said, I'm dedicating my entire life to philanthropy. I mean, a complete 180-degree change from the greedy a-hole who was sued by the U.S. government in 1995, 6, whatever it was, so 7. Those are the things that I really am very big on. This is more than just, here's how you do a real estate deal. It's more like, okay, how do you make your life better? Whatever platform that is. Because last night wasn't about real estate.
Yeah.
Last night was about a business and how can they make their life better through their business that has a very good margin. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds simplistic and it's simple, but it's the work of going through it and getting the things done. And as we said before, we got step A done last night.
Yeah.
And then everybody sat silent when Beth said, okay, what's the next step? And everybody's just like,
froze.
Yeah, because what is the next step? Not only is it hard to do the next step, it's hard to figure out what the next step is a lot of times.
Well, I think that's why we had the dinner with you, is because sometimes we needed business guidance to say, can you just tell us your opinion on what the next step is, and then hold us accountable 3 weeks after that to get us going in the right direction.
And to be cliche, my response would be, I could teach you to fish, or I could fish for you. I'll give you a fish. Which one do you want? That the part of the reason. How many questions do I ask about, well, why? Well, why? It's not to be annoying. It's to sit there and say, I could just say to you, Seth, how much money do you want to have in retirement? All right, but I could say that, but instead I would say, hey, what do you spend today? This. Okay, what do you think you need to spend when you retire? Okay, what do you think all these things to show you my thought process. That way, when I say to you, what do you need to retire? And you say X. I go, no, it's actually X times 2. And you go, holy F. I go, no, hang on a second. It does sound scary, but here's why that is. That's the whole point of it. It's to show the thought process and change the framework of how you think. Same with the real estate deal. Same with business. That's why when I hear people say, I'm a life coach, I'm a business coach, I'm a real estate coach, I'm like, I look at them as all the same thing because you have to approach them all the exact same way.
Yeah.
And what's that way? You have to approach them and say, what do I want? What do I expect? What can I do? In all three of them. It doesn't matter what it is, and then go from there. That's it.
I thought we might pick up the topic at hand today. You were fired up about this idea. And, the market has changed, I would say. We're in a 10-year span where the market is growing and been awesome for everybody.
Every market, stocks, bonds, real estate, everything.
Except Bitcoin. Bitcoin.
Bitcoin's was started in 11, and it was like a penny.
Well, I guess so. But yeah, the markets, and then we've had some interesting shifts in the past couple months.
Yep.
And I know that you've been stressing the idea that. Tell me your thoughts on this, the market and going into things. You've been stressing the idea that sometimes this market just doesn't matter to you as much.
The market price of an asset does not matter to me in the short run.
Let me dig in further this. Like, we talk a lot about stocks.
Yep.
We were eating Chipotle.
Mm-hmm.
I just pulled up the Chipotle stock. Hadn't looked at it in a while, and I said, "Boy, I wonder what it is." And you said 480 something, right? It's actually 596, and we both knew in its heyday it was 750. And Tim asked you, "Do you think it's worth 480?" And your reply was,
"No, it's worth way less." Before their E. coli outbreak was out, I thought they were worth 280. Now the E. coli outbreak, I mean, I'd have to look at the stock again. I don't know what it's worth, what I think it's worth today, but it's a very hyped up stock. You know what I mean? And they've had a few, I think, good earnings sessions since the E. coli happened. And it's just running up. Why? Because people think it's cool and trendy. And the statement I always make, and this applies to all assets, stocks, real estate, bonds, business. Warren Buffett, he actually takes it from security analysis or the intelligent investor, stocks are voting machines in the short run and weighing machines in the long run. What that means is when you vote, it's the most popular person that wins. So in stocks, the ones that go up are the most popular ones. In the short run, it's a voting machine. Whoever gets the most votes goes the highest. But in the long run, it's a weighing machine. Whichever one has the most behind it, the most assets, the most income, the most revenue, will win in the long run. And that's the way I look at all assets. So when I say market price doesn't matter to me, if I buy an asset that is hitting my goals with reasonable debt or reasonable whatever, and it's hitting all my return goals, do I care? Let's say I buy a piece of real estate for $1 million and it makes, assuming no debt, it makes $100,000 a year. That's a 10% return. That's great. Do I care if tomorrow the market says it's worth $1.2 million or $800,000? No, I'm still getting my $100,000 on my investment. Now, if I want to sell tomorrow, it does matter. But the thing that people don't get in investments, this is the hardest thing in the world. In the long run, everything reverts back to the mean. Everything will revert back to the mean over the long haul. And people will fight it and say, no, it's different this time. It's never, ever different. We don't have hundreds of years of data to disprove this. The funny part is I'll have people today say, technology is so different than it was 20 years ago. I'm like, well, you know what's funny? In 2000, everybody said, technology is so different than it was in 1980. And in 1980, guess what they said? Technology is so much different than it was in 1960. Every generation says the exact same thing. So I look at everything and say, I don't care what price you attach to it. My decision is what's the value and can I buy it at the price? Is the price today lower or higher than that value? If it's lower, I'm a buyer. If it's higher, I'm not buying. It's as simple as that. And as I own the asset, my goal personally, like we teach and learn from us, buy one great real estate piece a year and hold it for a long period of time.
Reiterate that whole, reiterate sort of your take-home message learned from us, because I love this one piece a year. Tell us again.
You work hard. Everybody listening to this conversation is going to say they work hard. They have limited capital, 25, 30 grand a year to invest. Find one great deal a year to buy where you're investing your 25 or 30 grand. Just one. Hold it for a long period of time, and you'll be worth 8 figures in 30 years. And I look at that saying, okay, does it really matter if along those 30 years, if you plan to hold it for 30 years, that in year 17, the market shifts and the price of the asset has fallen in value 30%? Why do you care? And I'll hear people say, well, what about but if you have a good loan on there that's long-term, the bank's not going to do anything to you as long as you're making your mortgage payment. And if you're getting the cash flow, nothing's going to happen to you. The question asked to me last night, Paul, what do you see in the next 5 years? And what did I say?
You said, well, number one, you sort of say something like, it doesn't matter, or usually it's I don't know. Because
it's I don't know. And then I say, because I don't care.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't care.
I don't care because if you buy a good piece of real estate, a good asset.
Or have a thriving business.
Now, does that mean that businesses don't have things to watch for? No, of course not. You still have to, there are those things, but nobody can guess 5 years from now. So your job is to buy
except banks and brokers and real estate agents.
Oh,
right?
This thing will be worth so much more tomorrow. No, it won't. You can't guess those things, so you don't know all the good or you don't know all the bad things or even the good things that'll make your asset worth more. All I can buy on is what I know today. And the future will take care of itself, whether you buy a good asset or not. But to me, if you buy a good asset at a good price, it doesn't matter would you rather buy a bad asset at a bad price or even a good asset at a bad price, and then if bad things happen, you're going to be even more screwed. But if you buy the best possible asset you can at the best possible price you can and get a good return, it doesn't matter what happens with the market price. I could not care less.
How did you learn to overcome this? You talk about one of your pillars from the Learn From Us teachings is the emotion of investing,
I know.
right? Like last night I said, boy, I got antsy. If you remember in previous podcasts, I had Amazon stock had become one of my foundational stocks in my portfolio to the point where, probably went up 140% since I bought it. And it became too much of my portfolio. Yep. And just on a whim, I said, Paul, you always talk about how these high stocks, these overpriced stocks, which I was into Tesla.
Yeah.
I had a lot of shares of Tesla, a lot of shares of Amazon. And you said, boy, the high priced stocks get the axe first. When the what is it? The rooster comes. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
When the fat lady sings.
Yeah, thank you. when the chickens come home to coop. When the fat lady sings, they're the ones that are going to get axed, like a high priced Chipotle or Tesla and Amazon. So it was like, well, maybe I should just sell my Amazon. Maybe 200 shares at 1711.
Whatever.
Yeah, and they've climbed back. But where the hell am I going with this? I guess where the hell am I going with this? My point is, I was getting antsy.
The discipline. You're talking about
emotionally antsy because I have a ton of money sitting in cash.
And you said this last night.
And your simple statement was, I believe there's going to be a better time to buy the same stock.
Yep.
Which is probably what we're talking about with real estate, right? I mean,
it's every asset under the sun. I look at history and I look at market cycles and say, where do we stand in this market cycle? It's pretty clear to me. It's pretty clear to a lot of people that this market cycle is on people who understand history and have looked at history. It's very clear to them that we're in a very frothy part of this market cycle. So all I'm waiting for is the market cycle to go to the other side. And at which point I can be like, okay, now I'm more of a buyer of assets. That's my entire goal here. It's usually not this extreme. So you can't really just sit there and, even when the market fell 50% from today, stocks, there'd still be overpriced stocks. There'd be a lot of underpriced stocks. There'd be a lot of stocks that are probably selling for what they should be selling for. Mm-hmm. That my goal is to always be on the lookout for those things depending on where the market cycle is. Now, does that mean you can't find a good deal? No. Our deal the week that we did for that 4 unit, I thought was a good deal. I'm like, hey, listen, I think somebody who bought it today and invested $60,000 into it, they're going to be in it for what it's worth, and they'll be able to make 15%. And with our guidance, they'll be able to make that 15%. If they went and did it on their own, they'd probably make 8 to 11%. So I look at that saying, this market's really crazy, and there's still that good deal. We're talking to a group in Columbus about buying a big apartment building because we found a way to get a deal that was still a good deal in this market. Mm-hmm. The bottom line, though, is, and the exact argument is this. We have a property in Columbus that we just finished rehabbing, a big property. It appraised for a number, and I laughed and said, it's not worth that. So here was them telling me it's worth this.
It's not, you're saying it's worth under that.
It's worth less. So what do I have it in my books for? I have it for the value I think it's worth. Mm-hmm. And guess what? I'll just tell you, the bank said it was worth 8.2. I think it's worth 7 to 7.5. So call it 7.25. I have it in my books for 7.25. And guess what? If the bank said it was worth 6, guess what I would say? No, it's worth 7.25.
Yeah.
I don't care if the bank says it's worth 6. Because guess what? 8-9 years ago when the market crashed, the banks would say that property is worth probably 5. And guess what I'd be doing? I'd be buying it as fast as I could. I'd be going to every owner in the sun saying, see, the bank thinks it's worth 5. You should sell it to me for 5 right now. And meanwhile, I'm in my head going, sweet. And in a few years, that thing will be worth 6.5. $7 million. Great. I'm good. So when you had that discipline took a long time, Seth, a lot of brainwashing and a lot of reading and understanding. And guess what? I'm still guilty of being emotional. Mm-hmm. I get emotional all the time. I still look at stocks and how they've gone in the last few years going, man, did I really F this up? I had a conversation with my father speaking about that, and he kind of laughed about it. And he said, yeah, you did screw up on it, but if you really believe what you believe and it falls, you're going to look like a genius. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And it's just taking that discipline over the years to say, I don't care what somebody else says. The Paul of 15 years ago, if a banker had said to me, like, oh, I would be cautious on this, I would have believed them. Like, well, they're a banker. They're smart. Now I know what bankers really are like. And I'm like, these are the dumbest people ever. They have no idea what's going on. All bankers out there, you are stupid. So...
Why, you always say that. Why is that?
Because they're no different than you and I.
We just got 4 unsubscribes from that last statement.
No, we just lost 4 stupid people then.
Go ahead.
They control all the money, and they don't understand how money works. They're average people hired. Seth, my whole point is you could go apply for a banking job tomorrow, and they would just say, you're hired, and here are the Excel sheets you need to understand. That's it. You're not really understanding. By the way, not even understanding. Here are the Excel sheets you need to use. It's not even understanding business. I literally had a bank say to me last week, we don't want to give you this loan because you made more than we thought you were going to make, and we want to understand why that is.
Huh.
Just think about what I just said there. You made more than we thought you were going to make, and we want to understand why that is. We're not going to give you a loan because you are now more secure because you made more money and have more assets, because we want to understand why that is. Because I'm really fucking good at what I do, assholes. That's why.
Yeah.
Would you have preferred I made less money? Would you have preferred I hit exactly my butt? I mean, really, this is what they said. And I look at that saying, this is the logic behind that.
This isn't your new home loan?
No, that was a different
story altogether.
Different story altogether. Pretty much every banking story is. So these are the people who essentially determine market prices, because if all of a sudden banks don't want to lend on real estate, what's going to happen to market prices? You know, in 2009, when the market crashed, nationwide banks completely said, we're not lending to these 5 states.
Yeah, Arizona.
Ohio was one of them, Pennsylvania, Michigan. And it's like, what do you think happened to prices there? They collapsed because if you can't get a loan, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
So guys like me who have bucks, and it hurts. The funny part is, it hurts the average person. It doesn't hurt a guy like me. It hurts the average person. And the bank's always talking about, we're there for the average person and make sure they build wealth. No, you're not. So when they're the ones that make these decisions that then affect market price, I look at the value and I say, this is some other reason. Some other reason caused this to happen. So same when the market's up a lot. The market's up a lot now because interest rates have been so low that people say, well, if I put my money in my checking account, I'm going to get 0%. I might as well put it in this. Because as Grant Cardone says, 6% is better than 0. He is 1,000% wrong.
I remember you talked about this.
Yeah.
Say it again.
He always says 6% is better than 0. He is wrong. 6% is not better than 0. Because if the downside risk is losing 30%, 0% is better than losing 30%. That's why he has Snoop Dogg at his shows, and that's how he has to and Tim's laughing because he has 2 Rolls Royces at his show last week, and he has Snoop Dogg on stage, and I'm like, what the F does Snoop Dogg and Rolls Royce have to do with investing?
He gets out rapping.
He's rapping. Who's rapping, Snoop Dogg or Grant?
Oh, Snoop Dogg gets out and Grant's dancing on stage, yeah.
60-year-old white guy Grant Cardone is rapping with Snoop Dogg, and I'm sure Snoop Dogg got paid $250,000 or something like that to show up and rev the crowd up and everything. And I look at these things and think, these are the people that become bankers, and these are the people that control the money. And they're the ones essentially that control market price, because the more loose they are with their lending, the higher market prices go. The stricter they are, the lower market prices go. So I'm just cognizant of being able to step out from that and say, what's the reason why people determine this? And when I look at cash flow, I sit there and say, the market price is not going to determine the cash flow. The cash flow determines the market price. So market price in the long run. So market price collapses in the short run, I still have the cash flow. That's all I care about.
Yeah.
If tomorrow the bank told me, Paul, your buildings are worth half what you think they are, guess what my cash flow did? Stay the same.
Stay the same.
Okay. Now, if I was selling tomorrow, that would suck. But then I would tell myself, if I really needed that money, I shouldn't have that much. It's just like stocks. If you need to retire in 2 years and you can't afford to take a 50% drop, you shouldn't have 100% stocks. You should be at 30%, 20%, things like that. So these are all the things that go in there. But I've been very fortunate to have read so much and seen so much about history that I've realized what determines market cycles and market price. And it's never one thing. It's the people. It's the masses. It's the whole lemming off the cliff thing. And that's where I have been able to make a good buck. And I've also missed out on a lot of opportunities because if I bought 5 years ago, the real estate deals I thought were overpriced back then, now they're more worth than I would have paid for them because the market drove it up.
You know, we opened with how I compared you to Yoda. I was really talking more about stature and size, overall height. But go back to if someone hires you, and if someone hires you, what do you, as your real estate investor, personal trainer, what do you envision? Take some of the mutual friends that we have that are now getting interested in this, which again, I'm sure they're going to be thanking you one day because we have. I remember we wanted to get together. We wanted to get together and share stock thoughts because we all wanted to get into some stock investing.
You guys did this?
We talked about it.
When was that?
Probably 3-4 years ago. We were on MJ's back pad. And I said, hey, listen, why don't we just
Investment club,
just talk. I mean, because I was, I'm starting to learn it's not a competition, right? We can all work at this together. And of course, with no guidance, it didn't pan out too much. It did for me because I went for it. But I mean, I say they're probably going to be thanking you because they're all starting to get interested. More and more people are texting us or listening to the podcast, and it's starting to make a lot more sense. And so, what would a partnership with them and one of our new clients look like? Can you explain?
The start is the goals part, the why. Why are you doing this? Why do you want this? What's the reason?
And what do you say when someone says, "I just want more money"? You would then say,
"Why do you want more money?"
Yeah, you keep going down this.
It's the whole. I don't know how personal I should get.
Why not? What do you mean?
Yeah, you're right.
About me or you?
So I used to have pretty bad anxiety. Remember, I once read a book where it said, "Okay, what gives you the most anxiety?" Okay, what if that happened?
Describe the anxiety you
Oh,
had.
mine's like, the great news is I'm completely rational about how irrational it is. Like, I'll worry about something that I know statistically has a 1 in, 8.4 million chance of happening. I'm like, yeah, but it could happen to me.
Really?
Oh, it's Seth. That's ridiculous. But it's gotten a lot better. It's completely ridiculous. But when I remember reading this book and it's saying, okay, let's say that happens, then what? Well, then I'll be sad. Okay, then what? Then I'll be depressed. Okay, then what? Then I'll cry. Okay, then what? And it kept going and going and going. And then it's like, well, then I'll just wake up the next day and
Start over.
And it'll eventually get better. And I'm like, I remember that was a big turning point for me. Like, yeah, well, okay. If the worst of the worst happens, what happens then? You'll still be able to figure something out. So when I say the why, and I keep going why, it's because somebody might eventually end up saying, you know why it is? I grew up poor and I hated seeing this and this in my household, and I never wanted that for myself.
That's a little bit of me.
That's a little bit of you. There was another group we met with who said the exact same thing.
Listen, before we get any, I don't want to say that we were poor. I mean, I saw my dad come home every day, get out of a dump truck, sort of defeated, tired, sweaty, and dirty, and it wasn't a good life.
No, you guys weren't poor by any means, but the same token, it wasn't like money was a plentiful there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
And somebody might sit there and say, I grew up poor, so I don't care if I lose everything. Everybody has a different reason for everything.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard people say, my thing is, once we get to high school, my parents are both doctors making good money. I never want to lose that. I never want to lose that lifestyle. So that's why I don't that's why I'm so conservative and cautious with my investments, because I never want to lose that. Somebody else might sit there and say, well, I came from nothing. I'll take every risk in the sun because I don't mind going back to nothing. I've already been there. When you understand the why, then I can use that to understand what their investment goals actually are. If somebody says to me, give me an example of what somebody might say.
Well, I know you're always so quick to be like, well, if you want 100 units, we'll do that. And if you want 10,000, we'll do that. And it's like,
yeah,
I always wonder how so confident. You're always so confident.
It's just, to me, I just look at it as extra zeros.
Yeah.
That's all it is. And the question becomes, I remember once, the guy I used to talk to about real estate when I first got into it, his name was Tom. He lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan. He owned a storage facility. And I remember saying to him, listen, you're pretty good at this investing thing. Why don't you ever try to become a billionaire? I'm not willing to do what it takes to become a billionaire.
You love when people are that honest.
Yeah. And I was just like, oh, damn. And I remember thinking to myself I remember back then thinking to myself well, that's dumb. Why wouldn't you want to do that? And then I realized when you start growing a business that sometimes it's not worth it. I don't want to deal with the bullshit.
Well, this whole thing about, like I said, going back to the beginning, how you've opened my eyes about understanding life and money and how it works. It's like, I now talk to people who are in their business. They might be kind of not fed up with it. They're just, life's dragging on, doing the same thing. And then I say what you've told me before is if I put $50,000 in your bank account, how would you feel tomorrow? It's like, well, I'd probably feel exactly the same.
Yes.
So we always want a bunch of money.
I'll tell you this.
Go on.
You'd probably feel pretty excited tomorrow. And then every day it would wean off a little bit. And then eventually you'd feel exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I usually always start slow. Like, well, how about 10,000? Would that change your day to day tomorrow? Probably not really. Would you? Most people would probably spend it, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess I always struggle with the idea. It's like, well, I want to make more money, but there is a price to pay when it comes to work, not seeing my kids, travel. And so it's a difficult world to take all this into account.
Yeah, but when we first started, it was showing the possibility that you could make 7 figures someday. And that was mind-blowing to you.
Yeah.
And you can. The question is, do you really, really want that? I don't know. And by the way, it's okay if you don't want that. And that's the hard part is that, somebody didn't go to our meeting last night because they had a function. And you kind of joked and said, oh, well, obviously it shows that they don't. And I said the same thing. I'm like, but I'd like to know that now versus later. We've all invested money and time. We have to make decisions, and it's okay as long as you're honest about what. Now, your goals can change.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Seth, maybe you make $1 million in a year, and you go, you know what? I kind of like that, and I just want to make a little bit more. Not for why do I want to make more money? It's fun to make more money and have more deals because it allows me to do things like, look at my Project Dynasty owner. I would love to have so much excess cash flow that I can do 2 or 3 of those a year or something like that, or every single year do something that's crazy, has a 90% chance of going to zero, but I'm okay with that. That's why I want to make more money. I want to make more money so I can go do other deals because I like doing deals. They're fun to do. I like rehabbing. That's why I want to make more money.
Yeah.
To me, it's not about buying more stuff. You know what I mean?
So I caught you at an interesting point in my life. So I have a PhD in chemistry. I had a boring chemistry job in Columbus. It was sort of like The Office. I'm sorry, Office Space. Office Space. Not even as funny as The Office, no. Office Space, you
Also a funny movie, though.
You arrive, you hope your boss doesn't see you whether you're on time or late. You hang out in a cubicle. It was that type of job. We had meetings that could have been emails. We had culture changes that, corporate come down and said we're now going to all work harder, which goes over so well. And
Did they actually say that?
No, but I mean,
I was like,
listen, I also work with a company called Focus 3, and they focus on culture, behavior skills, leadership skills, and they always say that their competition will come into a huge company, and they say, all right, we're going to change the culture here. You ready? Let's go. You're working harder. Let's go. It's a Monday meeting. We're all going to now work harder, make this a better culture. It's like, that doesn't work. That you need leadership. Where am I going with that? What I mean to say is so that was 3 years ago come April. And it was right out. And then shortly thereafter, I met you, and we started this whole process of opening up my mind that, well, maybe I could reconnected. Yeah, yes. Not met, re-met. But, where I could own a Mexican house. I mean, Tim has brainwashed himself. And maybe brainwash is a bad verb, Tim, because it's really just believing in yourself. I mean, you've given me the opportunity to believe myself what's possible. So, but my point is, folks, what I mean to say is I had that stupid dead-end job. I was making $80,000. I remember someone told me in 20 years I might make 100. And I was like, that's what someone said to me there. And I was like, wow, wouldn't that be great?
20 years?
That's what they said.
That's not even keeping up with inflation.
Maybe not. But that always stuck with me. Like maybe, well, I guess if I got like if I reached a certain level and got a certain raise, it might get there. But maybe I was wrong. But regardless, I mean, at that point, that was like insane, awesome. But I still wasn't going to be able to pay for my kids' college. I would never own real estate. Come on, that's for somebody else,
Of course.
And it wasn't until I walked in on Friday and they fired me. Go home.
Laid you off.
Yeah. But, no severance. Go home. We don't care about you. We don't care about your kids. Good luck with your mortgage. Like, have a great life. And that's when I kind of met you. So I've had a roller coaster experience, but that was just I've done so much in the past couple of years that a lot of which with your guidance,
Well, I mean, again, it's chicken. I mean, you had to put yourself in that position. You still have to, put yourself in position. I remember the first time I met you, you were like, what do you do now? It's like, you're like, I'd love to meet and talk about this. I was just like, I mean, that was very.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You don't remember that? At the Cavs game with Rahman up in the back, and I came and said hi to you, and you're like, what are you doing? I'm like, you're like, oh, man, I'd love to meet and talk with you sometime about that. I was like, well, that sounds good. I mean.
And from the first sentence was, I'd love to have dinner anytime. And I was like, wow, this guy wants to have dinner with me?
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. You said that. I mean, most people would sit there and say that and then never do it.
Yeah.
Right? And those are.
We did have dinner. That's right. I remember.
We did.
That's when you first laid out the B2Y.
Yeah.
Your what is it? Sort of your little chart graph, from where you are and where you want to be and all the steps in between.
I draw a bunch of lines in between and say.
Yeah, you love the lines. And I'm like, so I was telling Beth when I got home, I was like, like this step at the end is just as important as this third step. And we just need to start. It's so simplistic. I mean, you always tell me like, you can only do one thing at a time. Just go do a thing.
Yeah, do that thing.
Do that thing, anything, and just keep going. And it's like, it's really gotten me to increase my drive on a daily basis to.
Well, look at, the biggest thing for me was you and your budget. I loved the budget conversation. I'm not going to lie. I was a little frustrated with you at first because I told you, put your budget on paper. And you said, oh, yeah, no, I already have it done. It's in my head. I'm like, okay, it's in your head. That's useless.
Yeah.
Put it on paper. And then what happened once you finally did that?
Yeah, so I think like most people, I've never really sat down and created sort of a budget. I was in the unique position where I felt like I didn't need to because account values were going up, things were getting paid for. I was saving for my kids, retirement, saving for my retirement, saving for college, and it wasn't until I don't know what finally hit. Like Paul's like, let's just sit down and do this, and basically I figured out that our family puts out like between $6,000 and $7,000 a month. That's what we live for with savings and tuition and all this stuff. That's what we need to live, and within probably 2 weeks of analyzing it, I told Paul that we had come up with $2,050 that we didn't need to spend anymore. It's like cut this YMCA membership we're not going to, cut this thing we don't know, pay off
HBO.
Yeah, pay off this computer that was like just a few payments away, and it was like $2,000 a year. So
A month, not a year.
I'm sorry, a month, $2,000 a month.
And
so.
that's all it is. Everything's just that way, and it's just how I view the world. And people always say it's not that simple. No, it is that simple. I mean, there's okay. By the way, what is it? Is it Occam's razor or Murphy's law? No, it's Occam's razor. Which one's the one? The simple solution is probably the best solution.
I don't know.
Whatever it is, somebody out there is probably like, "Oh, this is dolt. It's blah blah blah."
Mm-hmm.
The simple solution is usually the best solution. That's very true. I mean, we keep things as simple as possible in everything we do. It's the same thing to go back to the whole market price versus cash flow. Cash flow is right there. Market price is this hypothetical that's all over the place. So which one do I understand? The thing that's already there. I just like to focus on the thing that I already see. Now, are there situations? Do I buy properties and do I buy investments because I think they're going to end up being that? Oh, absolutely. I mean, that apartment building I bought 3 years ago, I paid full ask price and gave $50,000 hard day one.
It's Columbus.
Yeah. That's the one that just appraised for $8.2 million. I paid $2.7 for it and put $1.8 million into it. I'm in it for $4 or $5.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And guess what? I paid full ask price and gave hard money day one. And everybody goes, "You paid full ask price for a property?" I'm like, yeah, because I knew it was worth way more. So that's my whole point. When you understand value, you understand cash flow.
Market doesn't matter.
Yeah. I remember sitting there. My first offer was 2.4. The guy came back at 2.5. So I said, "Fine, I'll pay you 2.5." Then he came back at 2.6. I'm like, "Wait a second, I thought we said 2.5." And he said, came back at 2.6. He's like, "Well, I have other people interested." I said, "Listen, what does it need to be? And just tell me what it needs to be, and I'll say yes or no." He goes, "Full ask, and I need $50,000 hard tomorrow." I said, "Done. Let's do it."
Just like that.
Just like that. And it was literally when I was in Mexico with Josh, and he was the broker in the deal. And I'm like, "What's that deal?" He's like, "Oh, it's a deal." I'm like, "Hey, fucker, why aren't you telling me about this deal?" And boom, it was done while we were in Mexico. And I'm like, "Listen, I'll do it. It's fine." And I'm so happy I did it, right? What if I'd been like a person who'd said, "Oh, I don't want to pay full ask price for a property."
Mm-hmm.
If it's worth it, you pay it.
Or the market didn't say.
Yeah, or the market didn't say it was worth, because I knew the rents were $545 there, and I could get higher. And guess what we charge now for rent? $895.
Are you serious?
Yeah, day one when we own the property. I'm not exaggerating when I say day one. Most people would say, "Oh, literally the first day we own the property, July 1st, I got $705 for rent for the exact same unit, doing no work to the property. $705 for the exact same unit, because I knew it was under market already. That's why they're 94% full. So that's the whole point. When you learn from us, when you learn and you understand emotion, you're willing to then go pay full ask price for things if it's the right deal, and you should have no problem with that. Price is just a number that's arbitrarily taken. It's not a measure of value. People have to remember that over and over and over again. Price is merely a price. Understanding value and price are very different things.
Write that down, Tim.
There's that old Mark Twain saying that's been convoluted. Has been convoluted and changed all the time. But the way it's been changed to, which I love, is a fool knows the price of everything and the value of nothing. So it's the truth. I mean, if everything was just based on discounted price, I would ask $100 million for my house and then say, "You know what? I'll give you a 99. You know what I mean? Whatever the percent discount is. I mean, that's not the value. So I reiterate that, and it has to do with the whole thought process we go along with everything. It's understanding everything along the way.
If you want to learn from Paul, go to learnfromus.com, learnfromus.com. You can reach out on any of the avenues, YouTube. Paul goes out of his way to answer people on Facebook, even the haters.
I just did that right now with the one guy.
Some guy's like, "You suck." He's like, "Thank you so much for your comment. I'd love to talk about why you think I suck."
And by the way, I'm serious. The funny thing is, I look at that comment going, is that going to appear to be some generic comment? But I'm really like, hey, he said I was a scam. He's like, "Scam." I'm like, okay, well, why do you think I'm a scam? Just because I'm on Facebook? I mean, come on, that's ridiculous.
I remember I saw another comment, and he's like, you're telling people, let's partner up on a property so we can work together to rehab it and make it better. And one of the comments was, "Yeah, so they can just up our rents." And I'm like, well, if you're the owner, then yes, that's the goal. Like, we're actually talking to the owners. Like, and their goal, trust us, is to want to up their rents, in rehab. So if you want, listen, I've said this to like my dear friends. If you want to finally get into real estate and you need a personal trainer, contact Learn From Us, and you will learn directly from Paul, Andrew, Mary, and Tim, the 4 horsemen of the real estate.
4 horsemen, that sounds good.
And I stress, like I said to my friends, if you are on the fringe and you're not ready to pull the trigger, just set an alarm on your phone. Remind me in 30 days to do it, because I think a lot of us are sitting around like, So I had friends
I
like,
love that.
well, I'm just not ready. I was like, fine, just let's just set a reminder on our phone to have the same stupid conversation.
That's a great
a year
comment.
from now when we don't do jack shit.
I should actually take their phones and actually put in their calendar a year from now. You're
Let me
right.
just borrow your phone real quick
Yeah.
and just like whenever. Yeah. So, luckily I'm getting free training live and in person.
Yeah.
And
We're paying you for it.
yes, thank you. So
By the way, I have to go to the bathroom.
stay tuned. Paul just had Chipotle, so we have to end this podcast early.
And a lot of Coke Zero.
Follow us on YouTube. We spend a lot of time on the videos, so if you want to see how ugly we are on YouTube, take a look. It's not much, but there's a hell of production value in here. I mean, better than Joe Rogan. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Joe Rogan. I mean, so maybe we'll have him on one day.
That'd be great.
So like, comment, subscribe. The better the hilarious comments, we like those better.
Oh, for
so,
sure.
Yeah, you don't have to cheer us on. We'll just give us something funny or
Yeah.
random quotes. So learnfromus.com. Thank you, Paul. You're the man.
Thank you, sir.
Go potty
Bye.
like a child.
Yes.